Hi guys, welcome to this very mini lecture series on campaign objectives, KPIs and metrics. So there's just two mini lectures today. The first one is a little bit longer, the second one a little bit shorter, but hopefully it will equip you with all of the new concepts, some knowledge and terminology to help you develop objectives, to understand KPIs and to choose which metrics are most suitable for your positive impact project. So the agenda today is to look at understanding objectives, to unpack some terminology, then how we can go about developing suitable objectives for our projects, and also looking at different sort of terminology, different sort of systems and schools of thoughts. And then finally, we'll be looking at how to craft interrelated and supportive objectives, so a hierarchy of objectives. So in order to undertake marketing strategically, we must have a set of well-developed objectives at the core. Now, if we want to develop an overarching or a top-level objective for our project or for our business or for our charity, we need to really develop a mission statement, because from the mission statement, we will develop our sort of core reason for being and what it is we're actually trying to achieve. So most organizations are well established, have a mission statement, in French, a raison d'être, a reason for being, and this encompasses what makes them different, what makes them unique, what are they here to do, what's their key differentiator, and it seeks to position the organization or charity in the mind of the audience. So who are they, what good are they doing in the world, who are they serving, what's unique about them. So here is an example. So as you know, some of you might recall, I work with a charity called the Packaging Free Larder, and the mission statement that we as a committee developed is as follows. So we are Portsmouth's first plastic-free supermarket, providing the community with groceries that don't cost the earth. So as you can see, we are kind of encompassing who we are, who we're serving, and what we're doing in that statement. So to develop an objective, a strategic objective, you first need to look to develop a mission statement. And from the mission statement, you should derive an overarching objective. And then from that overarching objective, you will really sort of distill what is the purpose of the organization. And then to move on to break that down further into distinct marketing objectives, you need to really think about, okay, what does this organization need to achieve in order to realize, in order to kind of get to that overarching objective? What are the different things we need to do in order to be the thing that we say we're going to be and serve people in the way that we say we're going to serve them? So to develop marketing objectives, we can take the mission statement and think, how do we need to get there? But we can also draw from the situation analysis. Where are we now? So if we get a deep understanding of our audience, we get a really good understanding of the marketing environment. So we know opportunities, we understand any threats, we also know what internal strengths that we've got and any internal weaknesses. We can then say, realistically, we can do X, Y, and Z in terms of marketing to help support achieving our overarching objective. So marketing objectives should be derived from achieving your overarching objective with a knowledge of the situation analysis. So what can realistically be achieved through marketing and what needs to be achieved in order to support the organization's overarching objective. So Phil and Turnbull surmised that objectives can be divided into three main streams, three main areas. And again, this will vary depending on whether a business is developing objectives, a charity, a non-for-profit, an organization, etc. But they do confirm that objectives grow out of our understanding of the context in which the strategy will operate. So that's the situation analysis. So where are we now? And the objectives are where we want to be. And in order for these to be realistic, we can look at competitors and we can look at obstacles and challenges and threats and budgets and whether the economy is growing, etc. So Phil and Turnbull identify that there's a corporate stream of objectives. So at the corporate level, an organization is concerned with objectives around performance. So how do they perform vis-a-vis competitors or vis-a-vis their past performance? Also at the corporate level, their image, how do customers see them and stakeholders see them, and reputation, and also, again, preferences. So they want to be the preferred brand or the preferred organization for their particular target audience. And then you can further break objectives down to a communication stream where people are aware, where the marketing team primarily are concerned with factors such as raising awareness, making sure the target audience know about the organization, understand who they are and what they offer, and sort of more of the services and products perhaps that they offer, and that they perceive them as being superior, trustworthy, good value, so that they have or develop the attitude that they're willing to engage with the company or willing to buy its products or donate or volunteer, etc. And then in the business sort of realm, if you are operating a business and concerned with objectives, and again, this does relate to charities too, because they're quite often trying to generate income. So in the sales stream of objectives, the focus is on sales, or you can replace the word sales in this sense with our positive impact projects with donations or volunteers or participation. So they're looking at sales volume, sales value, return on investment and market share. So again, charities and non-for-profits, they are still in a competitive marketplace. They are still competing for attention. They are competing for donations with other non-for-profits and charities in the same market. So although sales stream sounds very business orientated, it still does relate to charities and not-for-profits. So when you do reading around objectives, whether you're reading Phil and Turnbull or Petit and Brasington or digging down deeper into some of the journal articles, you will come across lots of different language to explain the different levels of objectives. And it might seem confusing and frustrating, but I'm telling you not to really worry too much, because they're all kind of saying the same thing. They're just using their own labels depending on which school of thought they're coming from. So if they're from a very corporate school of thought where they're studying large corporate organizations, perhaps multinationals, you will see the word corporate a lot, and you'll sort of see a lot of language concerned with sort of brand and market penetration, etc. If the writer and the school of thought is concerned with business, again, it will be around sales and terminology around business objectives. But the one thing that they all have in common is that they are all discussing and illustrating and reiterating how important it is to have a hierarchy of supporting objectives. So smaller objectives that help support, so achieving small objectives help support achieving the main objective. So a kind of a hierarchy moving up. So let's dive in and have a look at some of the different schools of thoughts, just so you understand where the focus is. So the sales school of thought claims that sales is the main role of marketing communications. Therefore, all objectives should be around achieving sales. So sales is the only way to measure success. So for your positive impact projects, you may need to think about what it is that you're trying to drive. Are you trying to drive volunteers? Are you trying to drive donations? Are you trying to sell tickets? Because in a way, all of those are kind of like sales. They're kind of like getting people to convert, to become customers or to become donors. The problem is, with this particular school of thought, that it's often quite difficult to link communications, so specific messaging, message campaigns, to specific sales, because there are many different factors. For example, your competitors might have a better communications campaign or just drop their prices suddenly. So your communication strategy might be good or even very good, but there's something going on in the environment that might actually affect your sales. Let's say perhaps there was an economic recession and people had less disposable income. Again, your communication strategy might be on point, but there's external factors that might be affecting the actual sales. There's also a term called ad stock, which was coined by Simon Broadbent. And this is a model that describes either the build up or decay of response throughout a campaign. So let's say you saw a campaign for Bose headphones last year, so you were aware of the headphones, and then suddenly this year you have an issue where you need to concentrate and you also happen to have a little bit of spare disposable income. You might say, okay, I'm going to start looking for noise cancelling headphones, and I remember that Bose sells some of those, and maybe you look at some other brands. So Bose would not have got the sale last year when they had the ad campaign that you saw, but they might actually get a sale the following year. So you've got carryover. So ad stock is a term that helps you to think about the fact that when you run a campaign, you might not see immediate effects, and the effects of your campaign might diminish, or you might get carryover where people actually respond at a much later date, well after the campaign is concluded. And this is another reason why it's difficult to actually measure the success of communication campaigns purely against sales or conversions. So another school of thought is the communication school of thought, as mentioned earlier. So this is marketing communications. And generally, this school of thought are concerned with objectives related to image and reputation. Now, one of the challenges with this is that it's actually quite difficult to measure image and reputation. And although many different marketing campaigns seek to do this, it quite often requires perhaps post-campaign surveys or audience response research. So a couple of examples, an objective relating to communications might be to increase spontaneous awareness from 22% to 28% within 6 weeks among 18 to 25-year-old males earning over £25,000 per year. So it's very specific. You've got some very specific targeted increases, timeline, very targeted audience. But what is spontaneous awareness, and how do we go about measuring it? So you need to have some sort of measurement mechanism and some sort of very distinct definition of what spontaneous awareness is. And that's quite often difficult for smaller organizations to do. It might require a market research agency to engage with a very specific audience who have been exposed to the campaign and get a certain sample size. So although it's very well structured in terms of being an objective, it can still be quite difficult to measure objectives like these. So as mentioned, the one thing that all schools of thought relating to objectives have in common is that they have a hierarchy of objectives. So levels of objectives that need to be reached and achieved in order to support the next level. So, for example, in order for more people to buy your product and continue buying your product, so to be loyal, you'd first need to make people aware of your product, aware of your brand, and influence their attitudes towards your product or service. So they like you, trust you, know you, and if they do that, they can then go on to buy and perhaps buy again. And if they do that, that will then pull forward into your overarching objective of maintaining profitability or maintaining market share or increasing sales. So objectives go through these different levels. So you have to achieve one level of objective in order to achieve the next. And then you need to achieve that level of objectives to achieve the next. So it's like a hierarchy with one level supporting the achievement of the next. So top level objectives, as mentioned before, derive from the corporate mission statement. So it's really important to identify what your mission is, what your reason for being is for your positive impact project. It'll also help when you derive this mission statement if you consider who your customers, buyers, and audience to be served is, what needs it is that you're satisfying. So what is it you're doing for that audience, and how you're going to do it, what products or technologies or what service it is that you're actually providing. So just to kind of reiterate with the example I gave earlier, so with the mission statement derived for the package-free larder, we've identified that the Portsmouth community, so hopefully you can see here in the mission state, Portsmouth, and community. So here we're actually identifying who the customers, buyers and audiences to be served. The needs to be satisfied. We are providing the community with groceries that don't cost the earth. So there's two meanings there. Groceries, which is food and household sort of cleaning products or toiletries, and don't cost the earth is a kind of a translation into being eco-friendly, but also sort of inexpensive. And finally, the service or product is that we're providing a plastic-free supermarket. So as you can see, the mission statement that was developed for the package-free larder completely encompasses these three areas. So as part of the weekly workshop activity, I'm asking you to develop a mission statement for your positive impact project that encompasses these three elements, which you can then derive an overarching objective from. So top level objectives, just to recap, will vary depending on whether your organisation is a business and it's for profit, or whether it's a charity or a non-for-profit. So generally businesses are concerned with, at the top level, of protecting or growing their revenue, protecting or growing their profit, growing their market share, or perhaps pricing goals such as getting people to trust or value their brand so they can charge more. Charities, on the other hand, are generally concerned with social change, whether that's human or environmental well-being, but they too also need to protect or grow their income. So they need to increase their income, their sort of donations, whether that's from the government, from the public, whether they have secondhand shops where they sell clothing. So they need to kind of think about their income stream so that they can continue to deliver that service that they provide for animals, people, or the environment. So in order to support your reason for being, in order to achieve your mission in the world, you need to have achieve your behavioural objectives. So penetration roughly translates to acquiring new customers, and loyalty roughly translates to retaining those customers, so keeping them with you. So as a charity, you might need to gain new donors, but you might want to also retain those donors to see if you can get them to donate monthly perhaps, so that you're not constantly chasing new donations. You actually have a kind of an income stream coming in. So for you guys, you're going to have a variety of different acquisition goals. Some of you might want participants, some of you might need volunteers, some of you might want to sell tickets or have subscribers, but all of you will be looking to gain new custom in some form for your positive impact project, and perhaps also look at loyalty as well. So in order to achieve your overarching objective, you need to achieve your behavior objectives, or your kind of like sales objectives if you're using the business school of thought terminology. So here's an example again from the package-free larder. So part of our overarching objective to make the shop a reality, we needed to raise some funds because opening a shop costs money, and this is a non-for-profit. So we had a group of individuals all lending their skills and talents, but we needed cash in order to secure a premises, to fit the premises with suitable fittings and furnishings and shelves, and also to buy stock. So we did a lot of research and put together lots of spreadsheets, and we came up with a figure that we needed to cover the shop long enough until it started to generate income from selling products. So we included rents, business rates, the cost of buying the products and fitting the shop, and some other areas. And the number, the cost we came to was £40,000. So we run a crowdfunder campaign and set ourselves a target. So that was the target for our social media marketing for that period, to raise, to drive awareness, to drive visitors to the crowdfunder page, to develop trust so people felt comfortable donating, and also to sort of inform people exactly what we were spending the money on, how the project was going to be realised, so they felt comfortable and encouraged and excited about donating. And over, I think it was a couple of months, we raised over the target. So we got £43,765, and that came from 905 supporters, over 56 days, so a couple of months. So that was our particular objective, and that achieving that objective will help us fulfill the overarching objective, which is to provide a plastic-free supermarket to the community in Portsmouth, providing inexpensive groceries that are also environmentally friendly. So this was what you would call a business level objective, or a sort of a campaign objective to help us achieve an overarching objective. So hopefully you can see how objectives tier up, and this real life example has helped to explain that. So in order to achieve those behavioural objectives or business level objectives, such as gaining new customers or gaining new donations, you need people to be aware of who you are. You need to affect their attitudes so they have a positive attitude towards you, positive perceptions, and they understand you, value you, and trust you. So these are in this particular school of thought we call intermediate objectives. So we're looking at driving awareness towards consideration, and when people are considering, to finally drive them towards making a decision, which will help achieve your behavioural objectives. So that's all for today, for this particular mini series. So I'm going to stop recording now, and then you can go on to watch the second mini lecture series, which is on KPIs and specific metrics to help you measure the success of your campaign.